On an April afternoon at Monticello Park in Alexandria, Virginia, my friend Ashley found a swarm of a couple thousand honeybees on a tree. She contacted the Northern Virginia Beekeepers Association, and a beekeeper named Catherine came to round up the wayward bees. Apparently, a local beekeeper had lost a swarm. The bees could have come from a block away or from a couple miles away. They landed a few feet up a tree trunk. As compensation for rounding up a wayward swarm, a beekeeper can keep any bees collected. Bees in a swarm such as this are usually not aggressive. Other times they will sting. Catherine wore a beekeeper jacket, hood, and gloves for protection. People wearing light-colored clothing are less likely to be stung. Dark-colored clothing reminds the bees of predators, such as bears and skunks, which makes them more likely to be aggressive and sting. Bees can see in the ultraviolet spectrum, as can birds. Some bees might be attracted by clothes washed in products with optical brighteners, which reflect UV light. This is one reason the U.S. military has guidelines prohibiting uniforms from being washed in detergents with such brightening agents, so troops will not be visible to people using night vision equipment. Catherine brought frames from some of her hives and scraped the bees onto them. When trying to collect a bee swarm, the goal is to capture the queen. If the queen is put into a box, the other bees will follow. The queen looks a bit different from the other bees, but not so different that she stands out in a group of thousands of bees. You should never swat at bees because they can release a pheromone which sends a signal to other bees to attack. When a bee embeds its stinger into flesh, the stinger is pulled out of its back end, causing the bee to die. All the bees on the tree were females. The queen determines the sex of her offspring. After mating, she can either fertilize an egg with stored sperm, or she can leave an egg unfertilized. The unfertilized eggs hatch into male drones with only one set of chromosomes, while the fertilized eggs hatch into female workers with two sets of chromosomes. The queen creates many more workers than drones. She can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day, and her lifespan is 3 to 4 years. Some of the bees in the Monticello swarm went to scout for food and places to roost. Some came back with pollen on their legs. The scouts communicate the location of food and roost sites to the other bees by doing their waggle dance, the discovery of which resulted in the Austrian ethologist Karl von Frisch winning a Nobel Prize in 1973. If the swarm and queen leave before the scout returns, the scout will probably die. Very few abandoned workers are adopted by other swarms. There are about 20,000 species of bees in the world, but only a tiny fraction are honeybees. Humans are thought to have domesticated bees about 10,000 years ago, primarily for honey production. Beekeeping occurred in ancient civilizations in Egypt, Greece, China, and elsewhere. Honeybees are under threat from the widespread use of a category of pesticides called neonicotinoids. The neonics are one cause of a phenomenon occurring this century called colony collapse disorder, in which 30 to 70% of a hive dies. Many U.S. farmers and beekeepers are concerned because the pollination of crops by honeybees is about a $250 million business. Bees pollinate a great many types of fruits and vegetables. The use of pesticides to kill bees and other insects can affect many parts of the food chain, including birds who rely on insects for food. But there is also a lot of concern about the environmental damage caused by honeybees. The bees in the Monticello swarm were western honeybees, Apis mellifera. They are native to Eurasia and Africa and were introduced to South America in the 1500s and North America in the 1600s. No crops native to the Americas rely on honeybees for pollination, only non-native crops. As a non-native species, western honeybees compete with native bee species in North America. They are generalists who visit many different types of flowers and compete with native species who visit these flowers. They sometimes dominate many different flower species on which native bees depend, and often outcompete native pollinators, which has caused problems in numerous North American ecosystems. They also pollinate many non-native plants, which crowd out native plant species. Catherine managed to capture most of the bees, including the queen. Once the queen was captured, the other bees followed her. They soon settled down and were not humming as loudly. Bees maintain the internal temperature of their hive at about 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Much of the heat is created by the movement of their wings. When I put my hand over one of the boxes, I could feel the heat. The following day at Monticello Park, no bees were on the tree where the swarm had been. If you ever find a wayward honeybee swarm, try to contact someone in a local beekeepers association to come to collect them. Swarms that are not collected often do not survive.